Yep, go.
I'm going to do what Michael does. Okay, reality change with Kris. This is show number 9, and it's the special audio only show. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Reality Change with Kris. This is a special show for two reasons. One is that we have a special guest, Myrna Ain, who is going to be chatting with us about reality change. And secondly, this show is strictly audio, no video. Our video guy, bless his heart, is feeling under the weather. And so we're going back to Skype, just like the old radio shows, really. And so I'm going to take a moment and just, first of all, tell you that I'm John Hawkins. And secondly, introduce my colleague in this, which is Serge Granbois.
Hey, John.
And thirdly, I'd like to welcome Myrna Ain to Reality
Hello,
Change
John.
with Kris.
Hello, John. Hello, Serge.
Hey, Myrna. Nice to have you on.
Now, I think just a word or two about Myrna would be helpful.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here again.
Okay. A word or two about Myrna, I think, will be helpful. Myrna has been working and playing with Kris for as long as I have, 10 years. Myrna is a successful businesswoman, mother, and grandmother. You don't mind my saying you're a grandmother, do you?
Not at all.
And
I earned it.
You earned it, yes. And also an accomplished student of reality creation. Myrna created an innovative program and wrote a book called The Leader Within, and started her own successful consulting business. This is just in the last 10 years. And she is now roaming the world as a tour guide and ambassador for Serenity for a women's travel group. And just a final note, and that is that Myrna, people really enjoy Myrna's questions and discussions with Kris because she focuses on the practical, everyday applications of how it works. So welcome, Myrna.
Oh, thank you. So wonderful to be with you both again. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome, and I think you add a very nice extra dimension, as John mentioned, in the discussions you have with Kris, because, as he pointed out, you focus on, everyday practicalities in ways that can help anyone who listens kind of get a better feel for what they can create for themselves.
Thank you.
And I know that, like John mentioned, you've had discussions with Kris for 10 years. I think you and John connected with myself and Kris in, was it April 2004?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's
No, later.
August.
November
November?
2004.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, well, actually, it's 10 years now. So, and it's always been a very nice experience and a pleasure whenever, you guys would come into the group and share things. I know that I've gained two wonderful friends in the process, and that has a very nice impact on my life as well. And I know that, from his side, Kris enjoys discussions with both of you in any capacity when those occur. So, one of the things that interests me, and I'm sure also interests many other people, is your perspectives, Myrna, your perspectives on the business world, how you see it, how you deal with it, and how you expand from there. And by that I mean there's a lot of people that read metaphysical material, New Age, and conscious creation things, and they want to make a significant impact, a meaningful, significant impact into their world. And sometimes maybe not know how to do that. And I know from having known you for so many years, you have created a good, successful consulting business. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could share some insights, how people can go ahead and activate or do something about their dream or desires to either have a small business or a bigger business, and make some kind of meaningful impact into their world. And I hope that's not too big a chunk to chew.
I'd like to try, and I think if perhaps I could start with where I started and where I find myself now. And there is no doubt in my mind that my world has changed significantly as a result of my relationship with Kris, as a result of my studying with John, that led me to work with Kris. It started earlier for me than with Kris. It started with a questioning about why my life wasn't going down the path that I thought I had been raised. It was almost like a race, and I was supposed to win this race in terms of successful career and marriage and blah, 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 blah. And up until about the age of 30, although I did well at school, that wasn't unfolding for me. And I didn't understand why not. And so I began a journey into psychotherapy where I did a master's of counseling. I have an undergraduate in psychology, master's of counseling. And I went and trained as a Gestalt therapist. And interestingly enough, I learned years later that Fritz Perls, there is a relationship between Fritz and Seth and Kris. So it became a wonderful, awesome, actually, surprise and no surprise in some ways. Because what I learned from Gestalt therapy at the time was that I'm responsible.
Are you still there, Myrna?
Oh, I am.
Yeah, it just cut out for a moment there. You said, I'm responsible?
I'm responsible for me. This is one of the major tenets of Gestalt therapy. I'm responsible for me. And the me that I'm responsible for has thousands of aspects. And I remember being taught that I could be one moment an Adolf Hitler and the next moment a Mother Teresa, and I could be anything and everything.
Yeah, Skype is cutting off again.
Oh.
We heard anything and everything.
Anything and everything in between, the Hitler and the Mother Teresa. And that, hold on a second, I'm going to see if I can, there. And that began to open my eyes that there was a lot more going on in my life than I had even anticipated. Anyway, fast forward. I got into the corporate world, and I found out that when it comes to organizations or individuals and their success, that it's not so much about acquiring skills and knowledge as it is about activating them. And so this began a 30-year-long journey to understand what it is in people and in organizations that either promote the activation of what I know or sabotage it. And so I began to study organizational culture and the individual within that culture. And what I learned is that as individuals, we learn to fit in. And whatever it is the organization says we need to be, we do it. And that leads us towards a path not very fulfilling. If I could say to you, over the 30 years that I have been assessing organizational culture, that employee engagement has always been low, and in 2014, it's the lowest it's ever been. And part of the reason for that, a very large part of the reason for that, is that the individuals believe that somebody else is in charge of their lives. And so through my desire to make a difference, I began to realize that when I go to work, I bring two Myrnas, the Myrna who's been trained to do what she does, and then the Myrna who actually leads the Myrna, the performer, not my external leader, the person to whom I report. And so this whole idea that John mentioned about the leader within started to feel like very much an extension of what I had been taught in Gestalt therapy about me being accountable for me. So I continued to do this work, and I met John as I had set up my business, and John was helping as our graphic artist to create materials, and then John and I went beyond a professional relationship and became friends, and realized that we both shared a desire to understand more about ourselves and our relationship to the world, and the accountability piece. Who am I really? And that led us to a study of the law of attraction and the Abraham Hicks work, which felt very much in line with I create my own reality. And then 10 years ago, John called to say that he believed there was a Abraham, quote unquote, here in Toronto by the name of Kris. And so we contacted you, Serge, and for many years, every Sunday night, would go and sit in front of Kris and acquire some incredible information that goes well beyond the law of attraction that is presently offered in most of these teachings. And John mentioned that I am very interested, I guess because of my background in training and development, to take a theory, to take a concept, and apply it. And so we would sit in front of Kris and listen, and then John and I would get together for years and apply. So I'd say to John, okay, this is what's going on in my life. How does what Kris just said this week around this concept apply here? And we'd role play it, and we'd talk about it. And it's frankly, and I know this to be true because I can feel myself about to cry, it has been an extraordinary journey to see what has happened in my life as a result of of applying the teachings that Kris has offered me. Extraordinary. In many aspects of my life, it's like I'm going, wow. And quite frankly, it has really, I was going to use the word forced. It's not a force. The information has caused me to live a very different relationship with the universe. And I am even now able to use the word God instead of all that is. I'm able to now understand a little more of who I am in relation to God, the universe, all that is, and I just had no idea before. So it's been a total game changer to be working with Kris. And I'm finding that it impacts the people that I'm dealing with every day, my family, my children, my grandchildren, my business colleagues. I am finding the world more open to hearing more about who they really are because quite frankly, I have never met so many unhappy people who have set up their own businesses or have been very successful. I'm dealing with senior management teams and CEOs and leadership teams in some major corporations. And while these people would externally look to be highly successful, they've got golden handcuffs that are keeping them in places that are quite desperate, quite frankly. I think I need to stop and take a breath.
Well, thank you very much, Myrna. It's having known you all these years, I've learned so many new things about you right now, and I just find it fascinating, just what you've expressed and how you've managed to, you know, make a different life for yourself than what had started so many years ago.
I would, if I were to describe myself, and then I stopped myself and I thought, if my children to describe who I am as their mother, it's not how I would have described myself at all in my 20s and 30s and 40s. And when I describe myself, how I experienced myself in those years to my children today, they don't know who I'm talking about. And I attribute a lot of that both to my relationship with John and to my relationship with Kris. I would suggest I am far more compassionate. I would suggest I'm far gentler. I would suggest I'm more tolerant. And I think one of the biggest lessons that Kris gave me from a professional and personal standpoint was when he said to me, stop teaching and fixing and start connecting and sharing. The moment I heard that, it went deep inside and my entire practice changed. It changed. The energy that I put out now is not the energy I was putting out before. There is an acceptance in me that people are who they are, and if they wish to listen and take in some of what I have to offer, great. And if they don't, great. And as a result of that, people are coming towards me rather than away from me, is my experience. That was a very profound moment. I share that statement with many people as recently as 2 days ago when I was in Ottawa, and the woman ran to get a piece of paper to write it down because it also impacted her deeply. And I imagine that those who are listening to this program are men and women who are healers or want to be healers and want to help and make a difference, as did I. Only I wasn't going about it the right way in trying it, because I was trying to teach and fix. It exhausted me and it pushed people away. I pushed people away. That's not true today. It's startling. That's not true today.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's actually quite deep, and it's basically mine and John's intention in having, this nice reality, excuse me, reality creation show with you as our guest, to actually explore exactly that topic, and to encourage others who want to make a difference. And I think that's a very human trait, to want to make a difference in our own lives and in the lives of others. And sometimes we, even with the best of intentions, it doesn't quite pan out as we imagine. But you might be correct in saying that we're just going about it the wrong way. We're going about it in terms of what we see as things that need to be fixing, and usually we think people need fixing. Um, but what really, um, I guess, what I'm trying to say is what what is underneath all that is it's just a matter of changing the beliefs we hold about ourselves, our own attitudes toward ourselves. When those things are changed, then everything else changes almost, well, by default. It just naturally happens.
Yes, and that concept of the internal dynamic, creating the external dynamic, is one of Kris's key teachings and has changed my life, where it's not about the external. The external is a mirror of what's going on internally. And there are many mystery schools that share that, as above, so below. It's yeah. And it just, that precept of my perception of my perceptions and what's happening internally and how it's being mirrored externally is like, it's a wow. It's just a wow.
I remember some years back when Kris started talking about the other is you, that also influenced you strongly when we had those
Yes.
discussions.
Yes.
Perhaps, John, if you want to pitch in, please feel free.
Oh, thank you, you guys. It's been very, very interesting so far. And Myrna is quite right. The practical application of this stuff really brings out. Well, it brings out the workaday kind of what do I do now about this problem kinds of insights. I mean, it's possible to think and talk and share about this stuff at basically a purely intellectual level for quite a long time. I know this because I did it. But what's always impressed me about Myrna is the buck stops here and now. How do we make this better?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what's going on here? Like, I'm in a situation that I'm finding difficult, and instead of here's one of the things that changed for me. Instead of trying to control it, instead of trying to get to the outcome that I think I want, what's changed is I actually surrender my resistance. And that's been huge, allowing myself to uncover what my resistances look like. So
it reminds me of the famous Star Trek lines: "Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated."
Yes. And I realize that something comes up, and I get agitated, I get fearful, and I'm able to more quickly, because I'm obviously my work with Kris, I'm able to go, wait, what's going on here? What's my state of consciousness right now? And it's fear. And I go, wait, what if I were to just drop the fear? Let it go. And whatever's supposed to be happening here, there's lessons in it for me. And I'm not in the driver's seat. That's also one of the major changes. I'm in the driver's seat when it comes to desiring. I'm not in the driver's seat in terms of what it's actually going to look like. And I've had so much recently that just blows me away when I let go of what it's supposed to look like and work with the universe on what is it I want and how can I just allow it to be. That's been huge.
I don't know if the two of you are amenable to having Kris come in for a little bit.
Wonderful.
Oh, lovely.
It won't take long because he's been kind of chomping at the bit. Now we trust that you are comfortable,
Thank you, Kris.
and we thank you both for your consideration.
Thank you, Kris.
Thank you.
Now, Myrna, you brought up a very, very important point. In fact, it is pivotal to many, many successful enterprises, whether on a small, medium, or large scale. And that is one of the few secrets that are not necessarily broadcast in terms of successfully leading an enterprise into its development. And that is the fearful need to want to control with a militant mindset every minute aspect and potential developments of such enterprises. Many people take even university degrees in business management. They read all manner of books and take classes, attend lectures, but this is often not discussed. This very point of stop controlling and fixing. Micromanaging hurts and hinders the development of most businesses and business ventures, as it does individual personal lives and relationships and so on and so forth. At some point, you have to let go and see your child, whether it is of your flesh and blood or of your mind and energies, take its initial steps forward and learn to walk and perhaps scrape its knees a few times until it masters the process of going forward. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
By doing so, by letting go of your extreme fearful control, thinking that what your business needs is what you know it needs, without realizing that in actuality you are but looking at it through a very narrow aperture. You are not seeing the whole picture, but only what you believe must occur. And that in itself is the major stumbling block and the major cause of business ventures closing up. Because there is too much control without actually utilizing this very point of sowing the seeds, watering the seeds, providing it with warmth, with soil, with water, with sunlight. But then it has to sprout and grow of its own volition. It cannot be prodded and encouraged to grow any faster. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So it is salient point and perhaps much appreciated by the listening audience that in times of fear, doubling down on the fear and the micromanaging is actually counterintuitive. But learning to take small steps into this intuitive zone often brings about those insights necessary and the connections necessary to make any enterprise flourish. And this applies not only to enterprises, but also into personal lives. So basically it implies that one should also enjoy the journey and not stress oneself out to the point where there is no more joy in it, because then the energies atrophy and are withdrawn.
So if I may, Kris, let's imagine, having set up a number of businesses myself, let's imagine I'm a sole proprietor of a clinic or my own practice. And I've put a lot of money and time and energy into this business, and I'm running out of money. I'm running out of money, and the practice hasn't taken off as I would like it to yet. But right now I'm looking at my bank account, and I'm scared. I'm scared.
Indeed.
Now,
indeed. Many an individual would begin to tremble, to sweat, and fear sets in. Therefore, the creativity, the creative impulses can no longer reach you.
Yes.
So the impulses to go out into the world and continue the process, make connections, network, speak to individuals, encourage individuals, and so on and so forth, withers. Because the strength seems to be draining away because the fear is there.
It's exhausting.
Indeed, very much so. It is usually the beginning of the end if one does not get off that treadmill. That hamster wheel seems to go faster nowhere and produces nothing.
So, if I may, this is back to where John and I would get together, having just heard you say something like that, and go, okay, I want to break this down into a process for me that I can use when I get to this place of feeling really scared and shut down, and I just want to pull the covers over myself and go back to bed. So what is it at this point that I could do? And I've worked this out for myself. I mean, I have steps and I write them down, and I go back and I look at them, and I look at them all the time. What is it that you would suggest in that moment where I am out of control?
Indeed.
I'm panicked. I'm panicked. What would you suggest as a step-by-step process to help me get back to opening up again?
First and foremost would be to address, acknowledge and address. Acknowledge the present situation. The present situation is not that the finances may be running low, but that your fears, your beliefs about perhaps some unaddressed iniquities, and so on and so forth, fears about having the knowledge necessary or the tools and skills necessary to continue are coming up in the conscious mind as the fears. And the more one begins to worry about the fears, the more one begins to forget. So acknowledging that, yes, right now it is important that I acknowledge that I am in a state of fear or panic or worry. That is an emotion or emotional states, if there is more than one situation. But these are not me. This is not whom I am. These are signals that some perhaps deeper hidden beliefs that I have hidden from myself for years. these particular beliefs are trying to come through now because they need to be put aside. They need to be released. So acknowledging that is a most significant first step. Then comes the addressing. So I have fears. I am worried. I know now that if I worry more and more about my fears and my worries, I am not producing any solution. I am still in the quicksand, and it is pulling me down. So I have acknowledged this. Now I need tools and resources to deal with my present fears and concerns. And of course, EFT would be an excellent choice, as are many other different modalities to address one's fears and basically diffuse them, allow them to be released so that practical, pragmatic, and even enchanting solutions may now come to the surface. And the final step is in accepting the situation, that yes, this is how it is in the moment as a result of my own limiting, constricting beliefs and so on and so forth. And I acknowledge this, I am addressing the situation, I accept the situation, and I also accept and welcome new tools, new resources, new contexts, new networks, new insights, dreams, inspiration. Even walking down the street, I accept receipt of insights from nature, from the environment, little gifts from the universe, which inspire me to look forward to creating more beautiful adventures as the day goes on. Literally taking your mind away from the gutter of worry and fear and transposing it then into the treetops with the beautiful non-ending flow of inspiration that is my heritage. As a soul, it is part of my nature to be inspired into whatever venture I choose to go to. So opening one's mind in this simple process, putting aside the worries, because all worry does is create more of the same. You need to generate a mindset, a state of consciousness that is open to receiving and not cutting off. Because most people, when they begin this fearful process, begin to think, oh, I must cut this out, I must stop this, I must end this, I may have to go bankrupt, I may have to do this. And they are setting a state of subjectivity that becomes then a foregone conclusion. And how do you call it? An self-fulfilling prophecy. You can also make a different kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, but one filled with positive outcomes. Because prophecies go either way, and you determine which way the rudder of your boat will go and take you. Does that make sense?
Oh, well, we've been working with that, the 3A's, the triple A's, for a very long time, and it so makes sense to me. I've been employing that and watching some incredible things happen. I was thinking with that middle step, you mentioned EFT, which is so powerful in terms of releasing resistance. And there's also in that second step the use of appreciation.
Indeed.
Because I find that if I can compartmentalize and say, okay, I'm really panicked right now, but right now I'm going to take the risk of putting my panic away, and I'm going to turn to my appreciation journal. And it changes my energy as I do that. What it brings up for me, Kris, is the training I had around fear and panic. And that is, I have to work with it. I have to feed it. somehow I feel at putting my fear aside, I'm going to be hurt even more. It sounds ridiculous, but this is what happens.
Indeed, it is called illogical logic.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
is used by almost everyone, thinking that if you worry and panic about things, they will somehow or other magically fix themselves.
Right. Right.
But that only brings more of the same. And
Yes.
it is most, how do we say, comical situation in a manner of speaking that human beings have been utilizing this for ever. And it has never worked. But it still goes on. Because
As
the
my
first thing you do is to put yourself down, that somehow or other it is your fault, and therefore you are an inadequate individual, and perhaps you are even a bad individual, and you should be ashamed to have gotten into that situation. And
yes.
that just creates a snowballing effect, and often there is no getting out of it. So if you can see the comedy and the irony of creating that situation for yourself, pull yourself out of it, change your state of consciousness, change your vibration, as some would say. Elevate the state of your consciousness. Appreciation is a wonderful tool, and appreciate not just your own qualities, but also the beautiful qualities of the world. The beautiful
Yes.
sky, the sunlight, the clouds, the birds, all and on and on. This literally propels you into that direct state of consciousness.
Of all the rituals and tools and methods, visualizations that I have been privileged to be introduced to, the one I keep going back to every day is my appreciation journal. And I just find it extraordinary. Just extraordinary, because it changes my state of consciousness. Even though I'm feeling awful, if I can put it aside and go to my journal, it changes me.
Now we suggest perhaps a small break, a few moments.
Okay, Kris. Thank you. We usually have a little 2 or 3 minute break in the middle of a show, Myrna.
Okay.
How did that go?
It was fun. What did you think, Myrna?
Well, I was thrilled. I was thrilled, Serge, because we got to where I think what the both of you had wanted to happen, and that was to make it practical. And so coming up with a scenario, which I'm sure many people are going to be facing, the fear of starting something and it feels like it's going downhill, not uphill. And then what do you do about it? Kris was marvelous as to what do you do about it.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm going to isolate that 5 minutes because that's really a really good description of the AAA.
Yeah.
I'm going to isolate that and sort of make it available as, okay, this is how you do AAA, folks.
Yeah.
It's from the little bit I remember, a lot of people would consider that it's now a sure thing that it's finished. You know, they're dead in the water now. There's no way out.
Right.
As a matter of fact, Myrna, I was thinking of asking you a question, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
Go ahead.
You've mentioned a couple of times that in the recent past, certain things have worked out really well, wonderfully for you using these techniques, and I thought it might be nice to hear about one, like selling the house.
selling the house,
Or, well, you know,
selling. Well, even the one that was you, Mark, Serge, and I years ago doing EFT together, and how our lives changed financially. The selling the house. I mean, yesterday, honest to God, I did this. I did the appreciation stuff, and holy moly, I can't believe what we got for the house.
And
For
especially that you sold a house, it was on the market for less than a week,
yeah,
which is very, very
yeah,
good, especially in near winter time and in
yeah,
this still, tight economy. That's amazing.
yes, yes. I put out 3 intentions, and they all happened. And that was true of when we sold it years ago, just after the 4 of us had been together. Yeah, and even this um, Tuscany thing, same thing. Like it's happening all over the place. It's amazing.
well, would you like to? Would you mind just talking about one of those things in a little bit of detail about how you applied the methods?
Yes,
Um,
I can do
now,
that.
the recorder is still going on. Is this something you want to include in the discussion in the audio file?
Sure, why not? I
Is
mean,
that
I
is that okay? I mean, we're not divulging any state secrets.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. But I would like to actually, to John's point, I would like to elaborate on what just happened yesterday
Well,
in terms of what we're
why don't we
talking
just continue that way then? Because
about.
basically the the camera, the video, the audio camera is still going on,
Yes,
so it
fine.
might just flow.
fine.
Okay, should I talk
Yeah,
now?
sure, sure.
Okay. So, um, my I bought a house with my husband 3 years ago, and we were to both continue doing our business, and we were going to work at supporting the house. And Ken then passed 2.5 years ago, and I find myself now with a house and a mortgage, and my daughter also decides that she's going to change her life, and she left her marriage and moved in with me and brought 2 little ones, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, with her. And so these 2 little ones are with us every second week. And my business, as it was for the last 25 years, I've wound down. And I'm sitting here, I am really concerned about the expenses and to keep the house going. Well, about a month and a half ago, my daughter decides that her business as a real estate agent has picked up, and she's moving out. She wants to move out, and so she should. And I'm now faced with this house, which is way too big for me, and it's going to feel very empty. So she suggested I needed to find a place before we sold this place. Okay, so I went and found a condo, and I bought the condo. At the same time, I still have a mortgage on this house. And so she decides to put the house out on the market in November, which is not the high selling season,
No, it's one of the low
but
ones.
it's one of the low ones, and she's convinced that it's going to be okay. Well, so in 2 weeks we've got the house packed up. It's like I can't believe what we accomplished, and I was doing fine until Friday. Last Friday, all the fears started to come in on me. Oh my God, I have no idea how I'm going to bridge this. What if the house doesn't sell? So all of the worst case scenarios. She had set it up so that we'd had an open house on the weekend, and offers were going to be last night, Tuesday. Well, I went off to Ottawa on the train, and I distracted myself for a while, but sorry. I
Mm-hmm.
have to, hold on. Guys?
Yep.
Sorry, a call came in.
Okay.
Okay, so I know that what I am aware. Oh, good.
Okay, you cut out a little bit there.
Hello.
Yep, you had cut out a little bit there.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
The call keeps coming in. Because I'm on my phone. So I'm at a state of panic, and just what I talked to Kris about. I'm aware that I've gotten totally into resistance, and that I have to do something about this. So I go to my coffee shop. I pick up my appreciation journal, and I'm writing like mad. And I wrote for 3 or 4 days every day. What do I appreciate? What do I appreciate? What do I appreciate? I also wrote out, what do I want? What do I desire? And I wrote 3 intentions about getting the money we asked for. And if Krishna, I'll add that, if the universe decides that there should be more money, over to them. I have no idea what that would look like, and I don't even want to try. And the 3rd intention was somebody's going to buy my house who loves it, because I just love this house. So I work with my appreciation. I work with letting go of the outcome, not up to me. And every couple hours, I realize the fear's coming in. No, I'm going to move it aside, and I'm just going to allow. I'm going to allow, and so I focus on my world as it's around me. And I worked hard at this. I did. I knew that I couldn't let the fear choke me and choke off what was coming to me. I was very aware of that. And so yesterday we put the offers come in. We got 3 offers for the house. And on the weekend, the house was packed. It was packed with people wanting to look at the house. And yesterday, 3 offers came in, and the offer that we took blew it out of the ballpark in terms of what we wanted. Not only did we get what we asked, we got a significant increase. This person wanted my house, and she's apparently lovely. Lovely. And there I am. I worked with identifying, I acknowledged my panic. My state of consciousness was not where I wanted it to be. I addressed it in terms of where are these fears coming from, and EFT. Oh, and I EFT'd. That was something Kris mentioned. I EFT'd, even though I'm desperately afraid of not selling my house. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And I EFT'd, and I EFT'd, and I wrote in my appreciation journal. And I kept distracting my panic with love and appreciation. And oh my God, I can't believe it. I mean, my daughter and I are still walking around going, what happened? This is awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah, it reminds me of something Kris hasn't mentioned in some time, but he used to talk and use the analogy of, when you bake a cake and you get all the ingredients together and you put it in the oven, and every 2 minutes you open the door of the oven to make sure it's still okay. Nothing's going to happen. It's going to fall flat.
Yeah. Yep.
You have to trust that, the 35 minutes is what it takes to bake the cake, and that's all there is to it.
Yep. And this was huge for me, not to open the door of the oven, not to give in to the panic. This is huge for me because that was not my conditioning. My conditioning was go with it, work it, expect the worst case and be happy if it ain't the worst case. And I worked with it. I just would not give in to the panic.
Sounds like a workout.
It was a workout. And yet, because I have so much evidence over the years of working with the tools and how they have supported me, I obviously had enough confidence. I had enough confidence in the tools And I also have a growing confidence in the love that the universe has for me.
Well, that's very, very cool, and I feel encouraged. Any comments, John? Anything else? Because
Oh,
we have a few minutes left, so.
I just wanted to thank you, Myrna, for indulging me in giving an example. That was a really good one. Um, yeah, that was a very good example of and a real life example because you know panic and fear and worst case scenarios. This is the reality for many, many, many people, and so I think this show today is going to be very helpful for people. Thank you so much for your participation.
And thank you
Mm,
very, very
thank,
much, Myrna. It was very inspiring.
thank you for giving me the chance to put a period to this journey.
Now it's time for a new, not just a new chapter, but a new book.
A new book, a new
Myr-
chapter.
Myrna
Yeah.
Part 2.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Kris.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, John and Myrna. And I guess um, we'll be seeing you next week.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you'll be seeing us hopefully.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
bye now.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you very much, John. That was very, very nice discussion with Myrna.
That worked well, didn't it?
Yes. And so I'm going to end the recording.
Okay.
Thank you.